What's going on YouTube? Welcome to episode 24 of the U.S.S. Enterprise D tutorial. I'm Zero Elite and I just want to thank you very much for tuning in today's episode. If you haven't, please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button and helping me in supporting the channel. I can't thank you enough for that. Today we got just shy of a half-hour video. We're trying to get some stuff done. We're going to be continuing our work we left off in episode 23, working on the pylons, getting those right. And then we're also going to do some work on the sides here of the lower hull, and then we'll pan back around and do a little bit more work on the pylons. Without further ado, we're just going to go ahead and jump right into it. Today's episode was originally going to be a little bit shorter, but I decided to make it a little bit longer because we're ultimately going to end up making our pylons a little bit wider than what they currently are. But the changes that we're going to be making here, I definitely recommend doing them because when we make them wider, we're going to be using everything that we have here as a template. But need to make them just a little bit taller. They're kind of short. So you can see we're going to do the same thing on the left side here. We're going to fill this block in, go one up, and then we're going to go two up, and then in one more and up with a cut, and the last one would be a single. We're going to repeat that same process on the front side, but we're going to get rid of that front block. We're going to go out, up by two, then out, up by one. Now you don't have to fill this part in because, like I was saying, we are ultimately going to be making this just a little bit wider. So you don't need to repeat this process with me, which is why I decided to make the episode just a little bit longer today so we can include the portion where I actually stretch them out just a little bit more because they're kind of hugging the ship a little bit too much right now. And from the back end, it looks great. But the problem that I came across is that when you start panning around and looking at it from the front view, the sides are getting lost in the you can't see them past their lower hull because of how wide it is. Um, so this is going to kind of be one of those things where we're going to have to be making changes as we go. This is why I said this is going to be really a realistic representation of building one of these ships from scratch, as opposed to having a ton of experience building a Galaxy class starship. It's my first one, but so far so good. She's looking pretty good. Definitely looking like the Enterprise D. Has all the design cues that you want. And the most important part, at every angle does she look like. And for the most part, yes, she does right now. I say for the most part because there are some changes that we have to make to the front of the neck here. And then the sides of the pylons, we're going to have to widen them up just a little bit, bring them a little bit further out than they currently are. But so far, we're in pretty good shape. And you can see here on my ship, I didn't actually fill in this middle middle part here on the top line, even though I told you guys to do that. If you still haven't done that, you don't necessarily have to. You can wait until I do it. But we are ultimately going to be filling that in. But what's going to end up happening is that we're just going to end up having to fill in just a little bit more on the sides here because we're making it thicker. So one of the things we're going to be doing now, moving on, we're going to be thickening up the sides of our pylons. This is not what I was talking about before. We're actually going to be bringing them out a little bit more, making them wider. But everything that we're doing, this is going to be the template. So if you want to do this with me, feel free. And when we widen them up, when we actually bring them out a little bit further, we're going to be using this portion here as a template. And I think we're actually end up being shorter than 29 minutes today because I'm going to fast forward the part where I fill in all this in here because there's going to be no need to show all that. So we're just going to skip past it. But we're definitely not going to want to make these the pylons too thick because on the Enterprise D, they're really not that thick, which was kind of a downside too because, I mean, this thing is massive, but even the scale that it's at, it's not going to be big enough to where we can walk from the lower hull through the pylons up into the engines. Um, in order to do that, I would have had to have at least made them one or at least two or twice what they are right now, four thickness. And I think that would have been way too thick for the scale for what I'm going for. It just wouldn't have worked. And it's really not big deal. I think that's really going to be the one and only compromise that we're going to be making on the Enterprise D during the course of this build. Other than that, we're going to be able to do everything else that I want to do, which is pretty awesome. Um, so now you can see we're getting back to what we got going on. We're just going to be filling in, going along with the cut line, doing one more on the outer sides. You can see I'm just going off the very bottom line here. So we're going to do the same thing on this back side, just going off the bottom with the white concrete. And I'm doing this so that they don't blend in with the white quartz, because ultimately we can always come back and change that to the white quartz. And we'll do a line going across the top. All right, so far so good. As we definitely are going to be, we've got a little bit more work to do than past today's episode on the pylons, just to get them right, but it'll be worth it. So this is going to be the section where I start filling in underneath here, so we're going to skip past this. I think after we do that, probably going to end up being like around maybe 24, 25 minutes or so. That's my indicator. I would have told you guys to fill in the other side, but like I said, don't do that because we're ultimately going to bring them out just a little bit more. Now you can see this cut line that I'm making up here. I made this because originally I was going to make a change here with the outline of the Enterprise going along the lower hull here. But I decided that I I changed my mind like probably about 10 minutes later. So that straight cut that you just saw me do, you can also ignore that line. We're going to do this side and then we're going to move on. Because I believe when I did this, I was thinking like, well, I'm thinking I maybe in the front making it cut down by one. But after looking at it, I just decided I'm like, it doesn't necessarily look bad the way it is, and we can just leave it. So now we're going to be going along the underside of our lip of the lower hull in the front, and we're going to be doing just one block on every row of white concrete. This is going to be the beginnings of our deflector dish. Well, the area that'll become our deflector dish. So there's one downside looking at that area right now. It's just way too thin, so we need to thicken it up just a little bit. I think before we make any changes to what we're doing, I should go into the other side now. We're going to repeat that same process because I'm sticking with one of my own rules. If I do one thing on one side, I'm going to do it again on the other side. And that single block right there, I'm trying to decide if I like that and if I want to add that in on the other side. Believe it or not, that's what a lot of this ends up being, throwing down the combination of the blocks you're going to use and deciding whether you like it or not. So basically what we're going to do here is we're going to go along the lip. Or basically we want a single block lip going in front of the row that we're adding right now. Although I did make a minor mistake on this side. There's the last row is 2 out, and then on this side it goes 1 and 1, but it should either be 1 and 1 or 2 on each side. Now the stuff here on the side, we're going to mess with this a little bit more because that's going to be kind of a blending issue right there, but we'll adjust it. As you can see, what I'm doing here on the bottom side isn't necessarily working as well on the bottom side as it is on the top side, which is going to be something that we will address as we go. All right, we got a couple more rows to do. One more. Okay, good shape. As you see what I'm doing here in the corners, I'm just trying to get something down to see how it looks and kind of let that marinate for a little bit and see if I like it. But ultimately, we are going to end up doing a little bit more work to the corners right here on the two sides. Now, what we are going to do is we're going to take off another corner of this edge right here. We did the same thing to both sides. We're bringing it again by one more. You say just went with the cut, again going with the pattern. That doesn't look terrible, but I don't know. We're going to play with that just a little bit. I want to make sure those two cuts match, so we're going to get rid of the bottom on this side. Okay. Looking pretty good so far. Aside from that minor mistake right there with that single block sticking out, that should be 2. Other than that, it looks really good. You can get a good idea of what I mean as we zoom out. The pylons, they just get lost by the sides here. That's why they need to come out at least kind of like right about here. We do the same thing on this side. Now what this is going to lead to is going to be a slight redesign of the lower siding here, at least on the top side. We're going to be bringing that, shaving it down by 1 and going into the half slabs, which I'm going to get into in just a moment. All right, now we're going to do the same thing on this side. Replace the corners with half slabs, and then right behind this, we'll do a single block of quartz. Then going along the lip here, we're going to do this with half slabs all the way up until we get to that first cut that we just made out a few minutes ago. And we're going to stop. Now that matches a little bit more with the back end. So you hopefully can see why I did that, because there is a row of half slabs right here. So we want all that to match. They weren't really necessarily matching up. Now what I was going to do, and you can see I'm playing with it here, I wanted to try to thicken it up going along the sides here, but using the half slabs, that's not going to work. Even if we did thicken it up going along the sides, we'd have to use full blocks, otherwise it's not going to match. Yeah, now we're going to fill back in this cut that we made earlier. So I told you guys we're just going to discard this. And it was worth throwing down because one of the reasons I did that was to kind of get an idea and try to visualize how that cut line would work. And I just decided that it just wasn't going to work. What we can do is we can bring that half slab back by one more now to make that match. See, now that's blended in pretty good. Looks like we meant to do that from the get-go, rather than making that change later on. And so I'm starting to play with the idea, thinking about that I'm going to make these longer, but that's going to be in the third part of this, which I don't think we're going to be doing for at least another 30 seconds or less. Should be hopping over that here in just a moment. There we go. Now we're going to extend them out. Now we're going into the final part of today's episode. So you can see we're going off of second to bottom row. You can see I'm counting this out slow enough that you can count that out with me. And I'm trying to get a gauge for exactly how many more I want to bring it out. Now again, this is crucial. We want to make sure that what we're doing on one side, we're repeating the same thing on the other side. So this way both sides match up. And we've got one more side to do. See, at this point, I'm just looking at how it's built, which is why we're leaving this up right now. So this way it's a little bit easier to build, and we don't have to build it all again from memory. And we've got the old pylon just sitting there, so we can use that as our direct reference now when we rebuild it. Now this row is we're going to start cutting inward. So let's just start to wireframe this out again. One of the cool benefits of this now is that we're not going to spend all of this time coming up with a design. The template's done, just a matter of recreating it. And we got one more to do. Okay. So far, so good. Now we're going to do the front side. All right, so we got the left side done. Now let's pop over to the right side and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to do the back end. And then the top. And you say, made a mistake somewhere on this front piece. I didn't bring it out wide enough, so we're going to fix that real quick. But this is a good thing to see this, so now you can definitely see why I build my ships in the way that I build them. Try to build them in a way that hopefully you can catch a mistake if and when it does happen. Now we're going to double check on this side. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to bring this all the way forward. See, all right, we're in good shape. This side matches up. So now what I'm doing is I'm double checking my work. I'm counting the length of the add-on. And now the final step, we're going to zoom out and take a look at it. And make sure that they're wide enough. I don't think we're making them any wider than they currently are, because if we do, then they're going to become too wide. Let's go to the other side now. We're going to do the same thing. Basically, what we're getting ready to do is to thicken them up a little bit more, like what we did earlier with the original row of pylons. Except this time we're going to do quartz on the outside. At this point, they don't have to match up. We don't have to have the white concrete on the outside. Really, the purpose why I'm doing this is just to stop them from blending in with each other, to prevent any mistakes that could possibly happen. Okay, we're in pretty good shape. We're going to hop over to the left side and repeat that same step. We just got one more row to do. And I think that's going to wrap us up for today. Kind of a lengthy video, didn't get a ton done, but trying to get as much done as possible within a reasonable amount of time. But that's just kind of the way it's going to be with this build. It's going to take us a good amount of time to get this render done on the ship, and it's just going to take some time. But we're in pretty good shape. What you can do off camera now is the old pylon. We can get rid of that. But you want to make sure that you're not deleting these bottom two rows here for both the front and back for base outline. Really, it's just this outline of the old pylon itself, and then the blocks in between. But hopefully you didn't add those in, and shouldn't take too long to get that deleted, and then we'll have our new template here to go off of. Anyway, I think that's going to wrap us up today. I just want to thank everybody again for tuning in today's episode. If you haven't, please help me out. Hit that like and subscribe button, helping me in supporting the channel. If you have any questions or just dropping by to say hey, I'd love to hear from everybody. And new subscribers, don't forget to hit notifications on. You always get notified when my new videos drop. And speaking of new videos, you always catch my Minecraft videos dropping Tuesdays through Thursdays. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for me. I just want to thank everybody again for tuning in today's episode. I hope everybody has a happy and safe week, and I'll catch you on the next episode.